Hello and welcome to Talk Spooky to Me, the Ghost Story Guys mail show. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestall.
And this is our opportunity to hear from you, our audience. Paul Damien Bestall, my beautiful bald friend, how are you doing there in sunny England?
I'm very well, thank you. We're doing okay. I've had a right dab on today. It's been too warm for February. And of course I got in the office and the heating's on full whack. And so my manager had to fetch me a fan over. I had such a dab on. I felt like I was coming out in sympathy for anybody slightly menopausal.
Well, you're both the right age.
Yes. I'm very versed with menopause, as Julie's been going through the perimenopause for about 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, everything is the temperature of lava, normally, in our house. But not today, because she said, oh, I'm going to put the heating on. I went, you mad? 14 degrees, T-shirt weather.
And it's like minus 20 here. It is cold as fuck. Well, as for me, I have been reminded yet again how small the world is. In addition to overheated, how small the world is, because shortly before we were scheduled to record, I got a call from a friend of mine who was vetting job applications at a business here in Ontario. And they said to me, do you recognize this name? And all they could remember was a first name. But they said they're from Revelstoke. And it's a very distinctive first name. And I said, is this their last name? And they said, yes. And it turns out this person from Revelstoke, who I was actually, I was like a teaching assistant in their elementary class when they were maybe in grade 2, is applying for a job at a place my friend works here in Ontario. In a giant country, it seems like such an unlikely coincidence.
Yes, is their name Dorian Gray?
Oh, you ruined the surprise. Sorry, Dorian, I've doxed you here on the Ghost Story Guys.
I think I've got one of their portraits in my attic.
I will say, actually, I looked this guy up, and he does still look, I can see immediately, I'm like, that's the same guy, because he has the same grin he had when I knew him as a small child. So somewhere there is a portrait of this guy getting more churlish and adult. So, no, it is a small world, but one full of lots of listener mail.
Woo!
Yes, very excited to dive into it now.
Our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day to serve all your supernatural elimination needs.
We're ready to believe you.
All right. So first up, we have something from Reddit, which I think is new, which is very cool. Mama Furbutt on Reddit said... And of course, you can find the Ghost Story Guys Reddit at r/Ghost Story Guys podcast. Mama Furbutt says, tonight I'm going to a former brothel that is allegedly haunted to play horror movie bingo while watching Rosemary's Baby. What could possibly go wrong? And she said, if you're in Albuquerque, it's Painted Lady Bed and Brew at the corner of 12th Street Northwest and Bellama. Free on Hold My Ticket. And she said afterwards it was a lot of fun, nothing supernatural, but she's going for a Ghost Story open mic night next week. And I got to say, that is the coolest shit. I would be there in a heartbeat.
It's certainly all happening in Albuquerque.
Apparently, which makes my experience of Albuquerque very disappointing, because I experienced an IHOP in the rain. That was it.
My experience is purely based on one of Prefab Sprout's latter hits of the 80s.
Those are all words. I don't recognize the order in which you said them, however.
That's all right. Yes, Prefab Sprout were a cult British sort of alternative pop band who were known for their expansive lyrics and heart-rending sort of tunes, and they did a song called The King of Rock and Roll, and one of the refrains in it was Albuquerque, wah, wah.
Okay. All right. My total exposure to Albuquerque, aside from the aforementioned Evening in the Rain, was Bugs Bunny saying he must have taken a left turn there. He knew he should have taken a left turn there. And
always listen to Bugs.
Always listen to Bugs. Unless he's doing one of those really racist cartoons from during the Second World War. Don't listen to him then. Or after that, there was some objection. Anyways, mostly listen to Bugs.
You must have got very different cartoons to the ones I've seen.
Have you never seen like the really racist, the propaganda ones?
Oh, they don't count, do they?
But even some of the, because I've got the box sets, and there's some where he's got like the triangle hat and the buck teeth. It's not good.
Yes, I remember some of those kind of things. But, let's not forget it. It took Hollywood 75 years to cast a Chinese actor as Charlie Chan. So,
That's fair. That's fair. Actually, on that subject, I went to go see Detective Chinatown, 1900, the other day. That was a fun movie. As someone who's been for a couple acupuncture treatments now, the scene where the Watson character jabs himself with a couple needles and then becomes super strong, just slayed me. And I tried asking my acupuncturist how we can make that happen, but she just looked at me very judgmentally.
Well, you're very fortunate. I mean, my cinema trip nearly killed me, but these are the things that we strive to enjoy.
Yeah, you got the shit beat out of you by the Red Hulk.
I've done 4DX a few times over the years. First Deadpool film. I mean, my first exposure to 4DX was when I went to Marvel Island 20 odd years ago and just was amazed by it. I thought it was incredible.
Cool, right.
Sort of the Spider-Man thing the Spider-Man ride you did there, which was just amazing. And I thought, wow. And so when I get the chance, if I can't do IMAX, I like to do 4DX. And it was really keen this time, even through the trailers. We were off. They were doing the trailer for Novocaine. Have you seen that?
I have not. No, they didn't run in front of mine.
So Novocaine seems to be an action comedy with a guy who's obviously trying to save his girl from lots of baddies, but he has no pain threshold.
Okay.
So he can stick people's heads in deep fat fryers and he's fine and they die and things like that. And so, it started then and it didn't let up. But the last 15 minutes, honestly, I needed a seatbelt. I've never been so frightened for my personal safety in a cinema since I went to see the first Harry Potter fight and there was a massive argument between two parents who were not together. They were parents of different children.
Yep, those Harry Potter crowds, man. That was like watching parents fight at soccer games. Like little league parents, you got to watch out for that shit.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a referee. Always says worst thing about being a ref is the parents.
I believe it. One last thing on movies. I've got a ticket tonight at 9:45 to go see the new Oz Perkins movie, The Monkey.
Oh right, yes.
So I'm very excited to catch that. It's nice. Like I usually try to, after recording, if I can, try and get a movie lined up. And then, so it's just like kind of, it gives me a deadline. I have to get the audio cleaned up and ready to edit for myself tomorrow before I go, because otherwise I'm fucked. So it's like, no, here's a deadline, you lazy bastard. Get to it. So, Mama Furbutt, thank you so much for, she's really actually been a very cool presence in the Reddit. It's been nice seeing more activity in there. And again, if you are on Reddit, you want to talk spooky stuff or whatever you've been doing, head to the Ghost Story Guys subreddit. Again, that's r/Ghost Story Guys podcast.
Our first message is from Diane, who says, "Hey, Bren and Paul. I was listening to the recent Mimics episode and it reminded me of something strange that happened to one of my friends. I've mentioned before that I live in a haunted house, and a lot of my friends have heard me talk about it. Last weekend, I was playing games online with a friend of mine, AJ. We were in a Discord call, and I told him I was going to step away for a few minutes to make a snack. I don't think I was away from my desk for more than 5 minutes. When I got back, AJ told me this. Hey, I know you live in a haunted house, and I think I've just heard your ghost. I was obviously astonished, as he told me that whilst I was away, he heard a male voice whisper into my microphone. Right at first, he missed the actual words. He said it took him a second to register what he was hearing, and a voice that couldn't be either mine, as I live alone and don't sound like a man, nor in the game. And we were playing Ranch Sim, which obviously has no voiceovers, narration, or speaking within the game itself. He said the only words he was sure of were the words, "What is this?" spoken in an irritated tone. To be fair, it's kind of like I speak at work. What is this? What is this? Honestly, it makes me wonder if this is a more frequent occurrence than I realise. I wonder if anyone else might have heard the same voice, but it's been lost in the sounds of the game or the music or whatever. You guys obviously do a lot of things with sound, recording and microphones. Has this ever happened to you? By the way, Brennan, if you're ever in Edmonton, I know a great place to go for amazing food and a fantastic craft beer list. It'd be my pleasure to treat you to a beer or two. Keep up the wonderful work. My co-workers have gotten used to me bursting out laughing at my workbench because of your show. Bye for now.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's not impossible for there to have been sound, Diane. Like I know there were times early on when we used to record in the haunted office where we did pick up a couple genuinely weird things back in the day. But then there were times where we recorded stuff that sounded weird, but turned out to be like headphone bleed, a pop-up window, so it's possible they heard something weird, like it's very much a possibility, but with something like that, especially when it's so clear, it's hard to rule out things like pop-ups, because like sometimes I can hear when I'm editing the show, even though Paul has like big headphones, I can sometimes still hear my voice coming through on his side of the recording. So, it's just one of those things, right? Sometimes things can be louder and more sensitive, and like headphones can be louder, speakers can be louder, and microphones can be more sensitive than we think. So yeah, not impossible. It was something spooky, but equally, you kind of have to rule out a lot of variables before you can say, yes, for sure, this thing.
It's happened to me on one show.
Oh, right. Yeah. Remind me.
Because I was interviewing a Scottish UFO researcher called Rick Allen, and we were talking about a particular book, and he mentioned it, and I went, yeah, I've read that. It's a brilliant book. And then all of a sudden, we just heard this, yes, on the line. It's about 2 years ago, though.
I remember that now. I remember hearing the clip.
That's when I said, I think my laptop's haunted. Yes.
Well, it would explain the whole thing probably been happening with our recording platform today. I think my laptop is also haunted.
Possessed.
Or that seems more likely. And Diane, if I'm ever in Edmonton, deal. Next up is from Karis. Karis says, Dear GSG team, perhaps not the most straightforward compliment, but I would like to say thank you for being the soundtrack to my misery. I have been through heartbreak, loss, and horrible depressions, and you guys have kept me company throughout. I have slept to your voices for months at a time, listening to episodes on repeat. It felt like company at a time when I was incredibly lonely. My Patreon payments have been far cheaper than therapy, but perhaps just as effective. Thank you for all you do and for keeping me company when I really needed it. I'm not going through the best time right now, but I know I can listen to you guys and feel calmer. My friends have always joked that I'm haunted, with numerous unrelated friends saying they'd woken in the night in bed with me to see a male figure watching me sleep, and never seem chuffed when I say, oh, he's back again. But sweet Lord, I am far less haunted than some of the stories you bring to life. Thank you again for all you do, Karis. And Karis, thank you. I'm sorry you're going through a hard time, but we're honored that we can help make a difference for you.
And always good to hear somebody use the term chuffed.
Yes.
Chuffed to bits to hear that, Karis. Thank you.
Keep on keeping on. You take care of yourself.
Amin writes, my favourite Clive Barker story is Weave World. One of the best novels ever, in my opinion. And one of his least horny ones. Lol. I wonder if Brennan has read Age of Desire yet. I don't think we need to go there.
So Amy, and that was from you. Amy commented that on YouTube. No, Amy, I haven't read Weave World or Age of Desire. All I've read, I read Everville a long time ago, and I think I read The Great and Secret Show when I was much younger. And then as I said, I just finished Cold Heart Canyon. Although, Paul, I had a bizarre synchronicity with Cold Heart Canyon. So, like I said, I was looking for a Clive Barker novel. I was just looking for like a magical kind of horror novel, like a horror novel with magical elements, because I want to incorporate some of that stuff into fear. And so I picked this at random because it was free on Spotify. I could listen to, however many hours for free. Otherwise would not have bothered. I'd never heard of it. Everyone seems to agree Clive has not written a great novel in about 20 years. And I would say this qualifies. It's fine. It's not great. But recently I finally went and explored the common area of my building. There's like a communal room downstairs that you can book. So I went down there to check it out. And what's on the shelf but a dog-eared copy of Cold Heart Canyon?
Meant to be.
I guess so. At least the pages weren't stuck together. That's something.
I've got a story about something similar, but I'm not going to share that on here.
Okay. Maybe in the live show, folks. Maybe if you're part of our...
See if I can beat last time.
There we go. Yeah, if you're part of our Patreon live show at patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, once a month at the $10 level, you too can hear Paul's filthy, filthy stories.
And all sadly and strangely true.
Yes. One last thing on Clive before we move on. Reading Cold Hard Canyon, I was like, oh, I understand now where all his thing, like, because it happens, right? Like you as an author, most of us, and I'm not in any way putting myself in Clive Barker's league, but you have a certain number of things you do. And when you write as many novels as he did, and which are quite lengthy and short stories and all that shit, he did a lot of screenplays, you're going to start repeating things. And in reading Cold Hard Canyon, I was like, oh shit, I played a game that he helped write back in the early 2000s called Clive Barker's Undying, which was sort of like a magical first-person shooter. And it wasn't bad. It was too long. There was too much running around. It was sort of like open world before that was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I remember reading an interview with him when that game was kind of being prepped. And I guess the first version of the protagonist that the studio had come up with was this big, beefy, bald guy named like fucking Count Von Muscles or some shit, right? Something stupid like that. And Clive Barker said, no, I want a protagonist that is fuckable. And I wouldn't fuck that guy. And so Clive Barker he came up with this like wiry, bearded Irishman. And that was his protagonist. That was his
himself.
I guess, yeah. He is an artist after all. I don't know if the guy's actually Irish, the guy doing the voice, but he had all these weird little sayings, like when he couldn't open a door, he would say stuck or jammed. And there's a lot of locked doors in the game because, again, it's a big world and they just didn't render much of it because it's 100 years ago. So you hear that shit a lot. And my friends and I would just, out of nowhere, we would stuck, jammed, stuck.
Like The Hobbit.
Yeah,
game.
Exactly.
You see a book on a table, reach for it. You cannot pick up the book. What? Why? There are 3 doors. Go through the door. You can't. Why? Oh, fuck this game.
What kind of Zork-ass shit is this? All right, one more before we take a quick commercial break. This one is from Peter. Peter says, Bren and Pablo, belated thank you for featuring my story about my evening with Lou Elizondo. My spouse was impressed. I think the best part was the way you bookended my story right between Jet Set Willie and Shake Your Tiny Titties. Y'all are the classiest act in town, and I can't get enough. Peter Guns 08.5.
Peter made a heartfelt appeal for me to stop picking on the Dallas Cowboys.
I did see that, yes.
Don't hold your breath, Peter. You keep being you guys, because I'm loving it.
Good, worth a try, Peter. It was worth a try.
I'll be thinking about them next year when we win the Super Bowl, and I'll be crying with laughter.
Jesus Christ. Well, he's going to talk about football for a while, so you guys listen to some ads, and I'll handle the football talk. We'll be right back. It's all about the coaching, baby.
Woo!
And we're back. It's funny, actually. We had someone, I don't know who, it's not in here, I don't think, but they said, oh, I really like your deflection that you've come up with about, like, talking about sports. And I have to say, that's not mine. The whole all about the coaching thing, I 100% stole that from another podcast. It's a podcast called Dear Old Dads. And it's about fatherhood and sort of modern masculinity. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I quite enjoyed it. And one of the hosts is very, like, he looks like a really manly man type. He's very fit, lifts weights, but he's a total nerd. And he just doesn't understand sports. He doesn't really have a head for it. But because he looks the way he looks, people will talk sports to him. And he came up with these deflections. So whoever it was, thank you very much. I can't take credit for them, sadly.
Our next message is from Gordy, who says, I was just telling Paul the last time I was in the pub for the Super Bowl, which was last year, a tap turned on by itself when I was having a piss. So tonight I'm half here for the game and half to do some ghost hunting. The pub is steeped in history. It used to be a police station, and the old cells are still here, which is now a pool room. Also, during the war, a load of American soldiers were based here in this area, which was just a small area outside of the city. In a pub a few doors down, which is called the Ye Old Hob Inn, loads of American soldiers were drinking in there, and some black American soldiers went into the bar for a drink. And the American soldiers tried to kick them out, but the locals told them to where they go. There's a plaque on the pub door commemorating the occasion, which always makes me proud that the people of my city still took no racist shit from Americans back then. Unfortunately, it ended up in a gunfight, and the black soldiers were court-martialed. Anyway, I'm visiting a town in Yorkshire tomorrow called Richmond, where I think one of the pubs has been a drinking establishment since about 1350. It's quite something for me to follow my three interests: ghost hunting, historic buildings, and pub toilets. But unfortunately, no joy on the ghost hunting side of things in the pub I was on about the other week, but I'll keep you updated on how Richmond goes.
All right, Gordy. It's funny, actually. Every time I see a pub bathroom, I think of Gordy. I don't know what this says about any of us.
Yes, he has a very interesting Instagram account, which focuses on pub toilets.
Yes, and he's like very specific about it, because I said, hey, like, I could send you photos of pub bathrooms. He's like, you can send them to me, but I'm not going to put them up. But I am curious to see what they look like. And okay.
Yes. Great things, toilets, it's very, especially when you're a man. I remember going to one on the way to a match in Newcastle, where we'd been in one of the dodgiest daytime strip bars I'd ever been forced to enter, where one of the dancers had a hairier back than I did. And I went to the toilet, and this was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was already covered in vomit.
Oh, no.
There was poo on the walls, and a needle, and a used condom. And I thought, well, that's lunchtime over with.
Wow.
I'd been better off walking into the sea in my clothes.
It would have been cleaner.
In fact, I think that was at Whitley Bay.
Oh, okay.
Which was terrifying, because I was in the toilet, and this guy went, "All right there, pal." I went, "Aye." So I thought, I know what's happening here. And he said, "There's one thing I hate. It's folk not from Newcastle drinking round Whitley Bay. Done yours?" And I went, "Aye, gets on my tits, man." Finished my piss and fucked off. Not going out here. I know what game you're trying to play here, mate. But luckily I'd lived in Jesmond, so I could put on a really shit accent, so it made it sound like I'd moved away.
Oh, man. That's not where I thought that was going. I thought that was going like Bren in the sauna. But no, obviously not.
No, he was about 8 foot tall. It would be like fighting a building.
Oh, no. Hard pass. Well, Gordy, I keep meaning to send you this particular photo. There's a bar that I sometimes go to called the Waltzing Weasel. And in the bathroom, they have a poster of pubs, UK pub toilets on the wall. There's like a dozen of them up there. So the next time I go to the Waltzing Weasel, man, I'll take a picture. I will send that to you. And I'll try to remember to put a link to Gordy's pub toilet Instagram in the show notes, just in case any of y'all are very possibly autistic like us. And Gordy, if you're not, I'm sorry, but I am. So
represent.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done, you.
Next up is from Keith. Keith says, "Hey, Brennan. Hey, Paul. How's it going?" "It's going well, thank you."
Hello.
"On listening to your German Ghost Stories episode, I thought I'd relate this little story to you both. Kev on Dark Paranormal had read the show quite some time back, but I thought I'd share it with you, being as the episode was German ghosts. So, a short tale related to me a few years back. A gym I used to go to had a sauna, steam room, etc., and you get to know some of the people there as you'd see them on a regular basis. Thankfully not with the same type of acquaintances that Brennan has had experience with in saunas." I don't even know. Did I talk about that on a main show, or was that a patron thing? I honestly don't remember.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Just in case it was on a patron thing, folks, the gym I go to has a sauna, and I did not understand why gentlemen kept doing sexy... Yeah, well, no, they weren't bears. It was some very sleek, muscular young men. I just couldn't figure out why they kept doing like deep stretches in front of me and bending over. And then someone helpfully explained what was happening. So yeah, I don't. I'm sure it has come up. I'm sure it has. But just in case, that is the joke. Last winter, my apartment was very cold, so I would go hang out at the sauna at my gym. And turns out that I was advertising something I didn't realize I was advertising.
Just wanted to be warm, did you?
I did. Not like that. Looking for warmth, not company. Well, that sounds worse. Let's just move on. Oh, gosh.
I can never love.
Yeah, I just very much love him and leave him. No, let's just move on. Let's go back to Keith's story. We're setting a mood here. Not that kind of mood. Jesus fucking Christ, it gets worse. Anyways.
Do you need a ladder for the hole you're in?
No, there's no ladder long enough. Anyways, going back to poor Keith's story.
Good lad.
I finished my workout and I went to the sauna. On entering, there was only one other person in there who I'd met and spoken to a few times before. As we were chatting, the conversation turned to paranormal experiences. This fellow was a firefighter at the time, and he told me of an experience he'd had a few years back when he was in the army. He said he was stationed in West Germany at the time. He and a colleague were traveling back to their barracks at dusk in a Land Rover. The journey took them through a forested area in the middle of nowhere and past an old World War II German barracks. He said there were no windows or doors on the building, just openings where they once were, just the shell of a building, really. He said he was the passenger in the Land Rover and was looking at the building as they drove by. He glanced at one of the doorways, and he said he could clearly see the silhouette of a World War II German officer standing in the doorway as if looking straight at them. He turned to tell his colleague, turned back, and the figure was gone. He said he could make out the peaked hat and long trench-type coat on this shadowy figure. He said the experience shook him up at the time, as he'd had no expectation. He said it was a very eerie encounter. Thank you, Keith, man. That's very cool. And, I mean, we've done some stuff, like we did the Blue Eyes show, the old Blue Eyes show. But I know military bases seem like a hotbed of paranormal activity. I would love to do another Haunting in the Military episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything with a military connection has the potential to be quite haunted, be it RAF, Navy, or Army.
Yeah. Well, I think, especially down in the States, the bases are so big. I think civilians, it's hard for us to get our head around it, but their bases are just, they're especially in places like the desert, like they're fucking huge. And that's a lot of land. I mean, it's not surprising. But yeah, if anyone out there has any military-based stories, please let us know. ghoststoryguys@gmail.com is the best way to send it. And we would love to do a third Haunting in the Military episode because, again, one, they're very popular. People really enjoy them. And two, I'm fascinated by the stories.
Absolutely. There's a deep well, I think, of experiences in that particular field.
Yeah, well, I have to be very circumspect, but there's a guy who could be an interesting person to talk to on the subject. And I've had like preliminary conversations with this person, but I'm not totally sure he's not a douchebag. But yeah, I don't know if that'll happen or not. But the fact that this guy's got like an endless well of military stories suggests to me there are many, many more out there.
Cool. Gabe writes on Instagram, "Hey, Brennan and Paul, I've just started listening to your podcast recently while searching for some spooky things to listen to at work. And I just wanted to say I love how you two are so open about real shit and mental health. I feel like there's a stigma, especially here in the United States, against men being open about mental health struggles. And being someone myself who has struggled with my mental health for the majority of my life, I find it very comforting to know that there are other men out there who aren't afraid to let us know that not only it's okay, but healthy to discuss mental health and the struggles of life. Your podcast feels like such a safe space for me because of that, and I wanted to say thank you to the both of you for being that safe space for me and for so many others. You truly are touching so many lives by what you do. Keep on keeping on, and I wish the best for both of you." Thank you, Gabe. That's very kind of you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's very cool. It's funny, the whole, like, the mental health part of it, that's kind of just come out of necessity in a lot of ways. It wasn't even something I necessarily said, like, that either of us said, like, hey, we should really address this head on. It was just like, no, we've both been through shit, and it's, we may as well just be honest about it. There's no sense lying. I mean, I'll be honest. There are times where I think we probably could have become, we could be a bigger show if we bullshitted people more. I do sometimes think, like, yeah, if we put on there are some shows out there, I think they're putting on the dog a little bit. And, but I don't know. It just, to be real, it's hard to be anything but that for me, or for both of us. We are the people we are.
Yes, absolutely. I have my psychiatric assessment on Monday. That's going to be fun.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot about that. I wonder what was happening with that.
Play mental illness bingo.
Okay. We're sorry, Mr. Bestel. It looks like you're a podcaster.
Who supports Tottenham and the Commanders? It's quite easy to work out where your problems lie, sir. You also have a weird penchant for European synth music from the 80s, which is never a good sign, sir.
And I'm seeing here on your file, darts? Yeah, this is all...
Boxing!
Tennis? What is happening here?
I'm just a mishmash of strange... Yeah, see, people say, oh, you like sport. The kind of sports I like aren't usually the ones most men do like.
So what do you think is a stereotypical male sport? Because I actually think of football as like American football as a very stereotypical male sport.
It depends where you are. Here in the UK, it's football, rugby, cricket.
Right. How can anyone watch cricket? That shit is so boring.
I mean, I can't stand rugby and I can't stand cricket, probably because I was forced to play both as a child.
That'll do it.
But yeah, and also forced to watch both as a child. So yeah, no. And then tennis just happened. That's Andre Agassi's fault. I've always liked tennis, but then Agassi came along and I had a man crush that stayed with me now for, how long have we been together, me and Andre? Christ, 39 years, 1987. First tournament I ever saw him in. What a vision he was back then.
So what's 39? Is that paper? Is that wood? What's the anniversary?
I don't know. I'll have to ask Steffi what to get him.
There we go. Oh man, I honestly, if we got you a personalized message from Andre Agassi because of the show, we could stop doing it afterwards. I feel like we peaked.
Oh, man, the games I've watched. He's the only tennis player that made me cry twice. Damn him! I'm crying at tennis. What's wrong with me? I cried when he won. I think I cried when he came back and he won his first major after all the Brooks Shields and the drug shit and all the depression he'd gone through. And I'm trying to think what he won. Might have been the US Open back 99, and I just burst into tears. I was so happy for him. And then his final game, which I think was at was it the French Open or the US Open? Might have been the US Open, and I cried my eyes out there for that as well. I just thought, oh, what a man. Oh, loved him. And, he's a bloody good bloke, him and Steffi. In fact, two of my favourite tennis players got married is a marvellous thing.
So, again, your expansive interests is one of the many things I find fascinating about you. Because, I know jack shit about tennis. My thing, I watch, if I ever watch sports, I watch baseball. That is it. Hockey bores the shit out of me. But I am mollified by baseball. You put that on, I'm like, okay, I can watch this. It is also boring. I recognize that. But I just, for some reason, it is my particular shade of boring.
Yes, I have a baseball shirt and I don't follow the sport at all. My mother fetched it back for me from Canada.
Oh, cool. Is it a Blue Jays?
It is.
Nice.
I like to wear it sometimes and hope nobody wants to talk to me about baseball.
Yeah, that's my same thing with my, when I was on the West Coast, I got that LA Dodgers shirt I wear to the gym. And I think you and I had that conversation. I was like, oh God, please don't ask me anymore. I tried listening to a Dodgers podcast just so I could make conversation. It was so fucking boring. It's like, no, I bought this as a souvenir when I went to see a Dodgers game. I don't follow what's going on with them. Please don't make me talk about this. Actually, that's the other thing. Just quickly, sort of something Gabe brought up, which I think is interesting, is like, again, I was recently doing some market research for the show, just for some advertising stuff. And what's funny is when you put us into certain services, which will try and show you other shows at that same level, it will connect us to people where I'm like, we're nothing fucking like those guys. Like those guys, to me, they're so successful and they're such big shows. And then you punch us in there and I'm like, there's no way in hell we're doing the same numbers as those guys. But, I get part of it is I think just because we're still around after this many years. But it's just, it's because the show is just something like you and I do. We have fun. I get to talk to my friend and say filthy shit to make him laugh. He tells me wild stories about his life in the magical land of Sheffield. And then I just edit it, put it out into the world, do some shitty Photoshop. And then I go off go off to the rest of my day. And I forget that it's out there in the world. And it like Karis said, and like Gabe said, like it touches people and it kind of affects them in a positive way. And that's a really cool thing to be part of. And not something I ever thought, like when I started doing this, 8 years ago, it's just not something I ever thought was going to happen. It's just crazy.
Save one life, you've done more than enough.
I guess so. And I without, bigging us up too much, I think we've done at least that.
And that's all that matters.
Well, on that sage note, my friend, you want to take us home with this last email?
No.
Oh, well, okay, that's fine. Let's talk more about Daredevil season 3, because I'm about 2/3 of the way through it right now, and it's good, but it's too angsty.
No, let's not do that to Brooke.
Okay, really though,
Brooke.
season 3 too angsty.
Brooke, you'll have to tell us what you thought of season 3. But anyway,
what are your opinions on Daredevil season 3, Brooke? Are you looking forward to Born Again? I'm actually very excited. That's why I'm watching it. Daredevil was my favorite character when I was a kid. Daredevil and Punisher, which again probably says stuff about me as a person, but we're not going to dwell.
Anyway, Brooke, when you've thought about that, I'll respond to your lovely message that you sent us that said, in response to the episode, For Those With Eyes to See, you said you hoped that when it was someone's time to go, you'd hope you'd just know, in order to say goodbye. You probably won't in the moment. Speaking from experience, I wrote into the show about my brother-in-law, Garrett, who wrote the song about how he wanted everyone to handle his passing. He had his last dinner at my house. He came by to show us the motorcycle that ultimately was part of his demise later that evening. I had no idea when I was making plans to help him bleach his hair later that week that I wouldn't get to do that. It was a regular day. Now that I'm 2+ years out, I've gotten to the other side of grief in that area. Initially, I hated myself for not seeing how special that time was, and now I'm glad for our conversation and it just being one of genuine interaction. There was nothing special about that time, and that's what makes it special. I hope that whenever the time comes for you to have your last interaction with someone, that it's good. I hope it's exactly what you need. Maybe not in that moment, but in the long run. I'm praying for you guys. You're out here in the streets producing great content. Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. And I responded to Brooke at the time. I very much remember your story.
Yeah.
And I believe we played Garrett's song on that episode.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And folks, if you want to hear that, his name was Garrett Long. I believe his music is still available on streaming. But also, if you listen to episode 148, Terror in the Skies, we play his song, I believe, at the end of the episode.
We did. Yep, as soon as she said it, I knew his name. I remember that.
Yeah.
Distinctly. And it is, Brooke. It's one of those things, I think, very similarly. Obviously not as close, but, it is a strange thing. I used to think I was cursed when I was younger. I went to so many funerals. But I think when you get a little bit wiser and a little bit more mature, you begin to believe that, actually it's not a curse to know so many people and be so close to them. It's actually a blessing. It doesn't feel like it at the time when you're there mourning and sharing grief with friends and family. But I think as you grow older and you realise things and you can look at things without the prism of grief clouding your vision, I think sometimes, I completely agree with what you're saying, Brooke. Absolutely.
It's funny that Brooke sent this, because I was reading something recently, and a person was talking about how, what's the point? Because, everything ends in sadness. It was very French, very like, oh, everything is shit anyways, so why
let's
bother?
have a croissant.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, the French, they know croissants. We'll give them that. But, 100%. And butter? Mm-hmm.
Wine?
Okay, so the French, you guys got a few things. And the whole existentialism thing, it's great. I get it. I like it too. However, I was thinking that to say that, sadness is sort of the end result of everything, I think is actually missing the point.
Yeah.
Because I think sadness is the price we pay for joy.
Yes.
It is, because in order for us to experience sadness, we first have had to experience joy. And I think that is a small price to pay for the wonderment that is the love we get from the people we know.
Very true. French also gave us one of my favourite 80s Euro pop songs, Voyage, Voyage, by Desireless. Peerless 4 minutes of French disco stomping. And I sing along with it, even though I know no words other than the chorus. I'll just sing whatever I think she's singing. Me, I don't care. Voyage, voyage.
The French also gave us Antisocial by Trust, which I think is a great song and was later covered by Anthrax.
Yeah. Valerie Dore, she was another 80s pop songstress of great acclaim.
Jacques Brel gave us Les Moribonds, one of my favorites, which was covered by Terry Jacks in the horrible Seasons in the Sun. But if you listen to the original by Jacques Brel, Les Moribonds, it's such a French song. It's very upbeat, but it's like, oh, my wife, her lover, goodbye to you, you suck, you boring bastard. And it's just, I don't know. Yeah, the French.
Oui.
All right. Well, thank you, Brooke, for taking the time. And again, if you want to reach us, you can send us an email at ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. You can find us again on the subreddit, r/GhostStoryGuysPodcast. We're on Instagram as The Ghost Story Guys. We're on Facebook as The Ghost Story Guys finally made a group. Paul, where can folks find you online?
You can find me masquerading as Mysteries and Monsters across most social media networks and occasionally calling idiots rude words on Threads, as I've done twice today.
I don't use Threads very much. I use Blue Sky more often, but I love scrolling through Threads and I'll just see Paul talking shit to some idiot, and I love it. It just makes my day. It's actually, you remind me of the guy who plays Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton. Like, I can't watch those movies. It's beyond my ability to take in violence. But he seems like a really capital dude, and he'll just be on there talking shit to stupid people and like to cruel, mean people, and just giving them both barrels. And I love it. So you're right up. David Howard Thornton, Paul Bestel.
That's great company to be in. It's like I said to the woman slagging Captain America off last week. I really hope you don't tell all 7 of your friends.
Exactly. And if you want to join me in watching Paul Bestel destroy people on social media, I'm on Threads.
Racists and phobes of all shades.
Exactly. I'm on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd as Largely the Truth. Our musical guest on this episode is called The Hex. They are, I believe, a Victoria band. I think it's the last of our Victoria-based bands. And of course, if you have an independent band, you want to get some more attention to your stuff, shoot us an email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. We would love to get you on the show. But this time around, yes, it is The Hex. They're from, I believe, Victoria. And the track we'll be playing is called Fire Season. That is from a split that they did with the band Paper Bomb. The album is called Beyond Strange Realms. And if you like what you hear, you'll find more about The Hex by clicking the link in the show notes. Thanks, as always, for listening, folks. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. We love reading your comments, seeing your comments. You guys, you make doing this worth it for me and Mr. Bestel. We love you so very much. And we will see you next week for episode 209. But until then, we will leave you with The Hex and Fire Season.